Stoops on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation, and welcome to Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at Soonerswire.com. He's Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on 94.7 The Ref in Norman. Josh, how was your holiday weekend?
It was great. Thank you so much. And again, one final time here for you. Well, I don't know. Maybe you'll get another one in the next couple of days. We'll see. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody out there. And the same, obviously, to you, John. I know you got to get away for a little bit with the family. So that's very nice. And obviously, well deserved, my friend.
Yeah, we had a good time. We went to Fritz's Adventure Park up in Branson. A little bit of shout out to them. If you like ropes courses and obstacles of that nature, definitely hit it up, but make sure you stretch, do a little, limbering up before you go as a 40-year-old man doing ropes courses and not really just the ropes courses, but following my 2-year-old around the tunnels in Fritz's Adventure Park. It was a lot of fun, but also quite sore after our 5-6 hours spent there, but a really great time in Branson if you're ever up there. And if you're from Oklahoma, you're probably going to make your way to Branson at some point. But Josh, we got some big news. Drake Stoops is coming back for 2023. I love it. I'm excited about it. Just a huge part of this team, this offense, really a clutch member of the offense. I think when you just look at what he provides to this team, yes, there's the catches, there's the yards, there's the touchdowns, and some of it is just the intangibles that you can't see on a stat sheet.
Yeah, the experience, I think, is invaluable for Oklahoma as you project into next season. We're still trying to figure out what the wide receiver group is going to look like for Oklahoma. There's, Marvin Mims that we need to get sorted out. Is he coming back to OU? That's your 1,000-yard receiver that is your game-breaking type wide receiver. We all know that. We all get that. But beyond that, with Theo Weiss obviously on the way out, and with neither really Jaden Gibson or Nick Anderson yet having made the types of contributions that maybe you or I or you Oklahoma fans were hoping or expecting this season, then look, it's huge that Oklahoma's getting Drake Stoops' 37 grabs, his 366 yards from this season back. And over the course of his career, 78 catches, 887 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. So he's been a very, very valued member of Oklahoma's wide receiving core for a long time. And actually, just looking at the numbers here, 22, clearly a career year for Drake Stoops. So if that trajectory is any indication, then the best is still yet ahead for Drake Stoops. So just from a what does Oklahoma have in its wide receiver core for sure right now perspective, what do they have coming back? Well, it's important that Drake Stoops is coming back because right now we don't know on Marvin Mims and the production beyond that. There's just not a lot of proven production for Oklahoma coming back as of right now today in 2023. So, hey, and the transfer portal, right? That's its own other discussion. Hasn't really netted what we thought it was going to net for Oklahoma. Crystal ball didn't wind up being correct for Oklahoma out of the transfer portal at wide receivers. So I don't think we can overstate the importance of Drake Stoops, right? It's huge for Oklahoma that he's coming back.
Well, just look at what he does for this team. Playing out of the slot, he plays tough. He makes big catches. 22 of his 37 receptions went for first downs this season. That was tied for second on the team with Braden Willis behind Marvin Mims. Obviously, Marvin Mims, your leading receiver. He had 36 first down receptions. and then Braden Willis, Drake Stoops at 22, Jaleel Farouk at 21. I really like what Jaleel Farouk brings to the football field. He's a very versatile player. You're kind of Deebo Samuel type player. He's not Deebo Samuel yet, but he's that type of a player that can do a lot of different things for you. I like Drake Stoops and what he's able to bring. Again, you talked about the experience. Him and Dylan Gabriel will get on a better page with another offseason to work together. And the fact that, again, he's such an important piece to your offense, just driving the ball, getting first downs, getting down the field. I mean, he made some huge down the field catches at times, even before this season. He's just been a really integral part. And then you talk about the leadership aspect of it. He's a guy that everybody kind of looks up to. He does everything the right way. He works his butt off. He was a non-scholarship player before Lincoln Riley gave him the scholarship. I think it was before the 2021 season. So you love to have those guys on your team. The Stoops name, obviously synonymous with Oklahoma football. I don't think he would have gone anywhere else to play football at the college level. I think it would either be at Oklahoma or take his shot at the NFL level. I think there's still some things he can do to improve his game to maybe get a shot at playing at the NFL level. He's not had that Wes Welker type 100 catch season, but if he can get to 50, 60 catches in 2023, there's something to be said for that. I mean, he's a slot player. He's a guy that's going to win in the slot and, do the dirty work for you, catching some of the tough balls over the middle for you. So I like it. I think it's good. You mentioned, Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson. I don't think this in any way inhibits them from taking a step and getting, more playing time, more reps next season. I think it does kind of provide you, again, we talk about it all the time, a solid floor at slot wide receiver, so that if guys like, JJ Hester or LV Bunkley Shelton aren't quite ready to kind of take on more reps, if a guy like, Jaquez Petaway isn't ready to get more, to step in as a true freshman, or Gavin Freeman, if he's not ready to take on a full-time role, you've got Drake Stoops to kind of be that floor. You know what you're going to get from him, a solid player every single time he steps out on the football field. And if one of those guys is a better option at the slot, you'll see them, get more reps, get more opportunities as the season goes along. But again, you got a really solid player in Drake Stoops, a guy that's a good blocker. Just please, fewer jet sweeps to Drake Stoops, please. Please, fewer of those. Use him, get him down the field, use him where he's at his best, over the middle, short, to intermediate spot of the field. He does a really good job there. So we're excited you're back, Drake. Please, no more jet sweeps. Just talk to Jeff Levy. Say no more jet sweeps, please.
Yeah, that would actually be a welcome sight. And I feel like this is one of those, we're writing the story with the knowledge in our mind and maybe haven't totally shared the information with the audience. I find myself guilty of that every now and again when I write a story. If you missed it, right, Bob Stoops revealed on the YouTube side over there on his channel that Drake Stoops has told the coaching staff that he's coming back. So if you're wondering, wait a second, I feel like I missed something here. What is going on? They're telling me that Drake Stoops is coming back, but I haven't seen that. Well, that's where the information was relayed. So yeah, agreed. No jet sweeps, please. Just let him be the slot possession receiver that showcases his greatest skill set, John, which is dating back to me getting to broadcast his games at Norman North. The one thing that always stood out about Drake Stoops, dude is sure-handed. When you put it within his catch radius, he's going to go make a catch, right? And he's certainly been very, very reliable in some big moments for Oklahoma over the course of his career. So again, big returnee for Oklahoma. And when you start thinking about, okay, putting the puzzle pieces together, if you do get Mims and Farouk back, then all of a sudden you got a pretty nice little 1-2-3 to start with.
And they might still make additions out of the transfer portal, but even if they don't, if Marvin Mims goes off to the NFL, I still feel like I'm in a decent place with Jaleel Farouk and with Drake Stoops. You get two of your starting, your three starting wide receivers and 11 personnel back. At least gives you a solid place to start. Then you have competition at the other outside wide receiver position to see who replaces Marvin Mims. And you got some experienced guys that you got in the transfer portal last year. You got some young guys that are 4-star talents that you really like, not just the 2022 guys, but the 2023 signees as well, that you just throw into this mixed match of competition, and you just kind of see who rises. You see which of the cream rises to the top. So I think there's a lot of potential really good options. Again, there's scuttlebutt that Marvin Mims comes back, but nothing's official. Who knows really? that guy could go off to the NFL and be a top 100 draft pick and have an opportunity to play on Sundays right away because of what he's able to do down the field. But in the event he doesn't come back, you got a really solid place to start at wide receiver for 2023. Coming up, we're going to talk about Reggie Pearson. The Sooners added a hard-hitting safety in the transfer portal. We'll talk about him after I talked about BetOnline. It's the number one place to bet on all your favorite sports, from NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, MLB, esports, MMA, boxing, whatever it is. You can go to BetOnline, find all the latest odds and scores available for you over there. Right now, the Oklahoma Sooners are 9.5-point underdogs to the Florida State Seminoles heading into the Cheez-It Bowl. If you want to take that action, go over to BetOnline. I'm really liking that. I'm liking Oklahoma plus the points in that game. Games in which Dylan Gabriel's played all year or all 4 quarters, the Sooners have played close games. They haven't lost by more than a touchdown in those games. So if you're liking that, like I'm liking that, go over to betonline.net to place that bet. Again, BetOnline is the fastest and the easiest place to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. And thank you so much for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. Go hit the subscribe button over on YouTube. Hit the like button as well and the notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. And hey, go drop us a 5-star review over on Apple if you're inclined. We'd love to get that feedback and also help more people find out about the show. Josh, Reggie Pearson, the guy that nearly knocked Dylan Gabriel out of the game against Texas Tech, knocked him out for a play against the Red Raiders there in overtime, and also had one crushing blow on Eric Gray coming down from the safety spot, commits to the Oklahoma Sooners, coming in the transfer portal from Texas Tech. I love the addition. I love this addition. I think it brings an edge to the Oklahoma defense that they don't really have in the secondary. Somebody I thought Key Lawrence was going to be, but really didn't turn out to be that guy. Reggie Pearson is that guy.
Yeah, look, it's great to get a little bit of defensive back help here, right? I mean, we think, well, obviously Morrison, Broyles moving on from Oklahoma. So just from that standpoint, nice to get safety help in the form of Reggie Pearson Jr., who has basically been a 55 tackle, 4 pass breakup kind of guy the last 3 years at Wisconsin and Texas Tech combined. If you want to run down the official statistics, 60 tackles in 19 with Wisconsin, 4 passes defensed, and then in 21 and 22 at Texas Tech, 54 tackles, 3 passes broken up, 55 tackles, 4 passes broken up. So again, 55 tackles, 4 passes defense. That's kind of what you're looking at from a production standpoint. And for Oklahoma, just to get, again, this is, John, what you want to see out of the transfer portal is somebody that is a proven production commodity. And that's kind of what the beautiful thing about the transfer portal is every single year you can cycle your way through some options out of the transfer portal and take some chances. It just seems to be a high floor kind of guy for Oklahoma out of the transfer portal that, again, is worth about 55 tackles and several pass breakups a season. And, oh, by the way, has Power 5 experience at both Wisconsin and Texas Tech. So he's played, big Power 5 football, which, you think about some of the guys that Oklahoma, from a defensive back standpoint, has brought in. I'm thinking, primarily of CJ Colden, who was not a Power 5 guy, came in and, did some really nice things. I think it only helps you a little bit, right, that you've already been at the Power 5 level. Not that it was any sort of a hindrance to CJ Colden, but, I kind of like bringing Power 5 guys over into Oklahoma. So just a really, really good pickup for a defensive backfield, John, that, look, they're going to take all the help they can get.
Exactly. And, if there's one area where he struggles, it's in coverage. That's a place he can be attacked, and Oklahoma did that in the game there against Texas Tech. But he's a guy that's a pretty sure tackler. And you mentioned it, the experience factor. The dude's played, over 2,100 snaps at the FBS level between Wisconsin and Texas Tech over the last 3 seasons. This last season playing more than 700 snaps for the Red Raiders. Anytime that you can add experience like that, it's only going to benefit your defense. And I think having him as one of those options that could potentially help you at strong safety or at cheetah a little bit, that's good for you. A guy that's going to be able to come up and help in run support. I think it's going to benefit this Oklahoma defense a little bit because they struggled in run support, especially when it was the quarterback run game. He had a great game against Oklahoma, 9 tackles. Again, some, a little bit suspect in coverage, but against a good Oklahoma passing attack, that's bound to happen. But he had 9 total tackles against the Oklahoma Sooners and 3 stops, according to Pro Football Focus. So a really strong game. He didn't have that many tackles in a game all year long. Sorry, it was 11 total tackles. So like the performance, a starter for the Red Raiders. Again, their defense wasn't great, but anytime that you can get a starter, somebody with that much experience, that's only going to benefit you. It'll help some of your younger guys too, because again, we talk about it all the time, high floor. It allows your guys to develop. If a guy like Robert Spears-Jennings comes in, takes the job from him or Key Lawrence, that helps you, because that competition is what breeds the better play from your younger guys. So I'm excited about that. I think it just adds to the safety depth, and it's a good thing. Now you have, going into next year, you have Billy Bowman, Key Lawrence, Reggie Pearson, Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears-Jennings, all going to be competing for snaps at safety. That's a good thing for you. And then maybe even guys like, nope, Mukes is gone. I'm trying to think. I think everybody else, that's kind of your key safety group right there. And I like where it's at.
Interesting that Oklahoma was able to swing this transfer portal edition too, right? Just given the fact that, you got somebody, Reggie Pearson, that's a starter. He's obviously, for whatever reason, looking for a new home, but it's not, you start listing some of those names off, John. It's not as though this is just some, slam dunk thing. I think that he's going to be a starter necessarily at Oklahoma, right? I mean, he's going to have to come in here and work to earn that starting position, which, from that standpoint for Oklahoma is just great from a depth perspective, that if you're adding some piece to your roster that, I mean, maybe he is, right? Maybe it's just plug and play, and from day one, he's your other starter opposite Billy Bowman at safety, right? I mean, maybe it's as simple as that, but, you start thinking about Key Lawrence and Robert Spears-Jennings, and, and it's been well chronicled, the type of recruitment that Peyton Bowen is and the 5-star signee that he is. So you've got some nice options right there at safety now. And it's, I don't think, just an absolute guarantee that he's going to be a starter at Oklahoma. And you know what? If he's somebody that is a depth piece for OU, that's a heck of a depth piece to have.
Yeah, I feel like he kind of comes in and takes over that Justin Broyles role, right? The guy that's going to help out a lot on special teams. At worst is your third safety, potentially is a starting strong, but at worst is your third safety. So, when you go into sub packages, you're bringing 3 safeties on the field. He could be one of those guys. If you're having to, load up and you're wanting to stop the run, he could be a guy that can play in the box for you. Again, he may not be your quote unquote starter for you, but I think he does end up playing a lot, just in the same way that Justin Broyles played a lot. He wasn't always a starter for you, but he got on the field a lot. And maybe he's a more impact tackler. We saw it. I mean, we saw him launch Eric Gray. Like, we saw him knock Dylan Gabriel out on 2 really clean hits. So this is a dude that's a physical player, going to come up and play fast and play physical and run support. So an exciting ad for the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll see how it translates and how it kind of comes together and ends up looking on the field with all these really nice safety talents. But who knows? I mean, they want to play versatile. They want to play multiple defensively. And this is just a guy that could allow you to do a little bit more, maybe because of his physicality, his ability to play the run. We'll see how that all works out. Coming up, well, let's talk depth chart. Let's talk about what it looks like for the Oklahoma Sooners, because a lot of bowl opt-outs, a lot of guys through the transfer portal. Josh, tweeted out the depth chart today after the show and or the show over there on the ref. And so let's just talk about it. Where are some of the things that we're looking forward to seeing for the Oklahoma Sooners in the Cheez-It Bowl after Josh talks to you about LinkedIn?
You're looking to have a great new year. You need to go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, where you can post your job for free. Go ahead and get the applicants that you need to hire for free. Create a job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. You just add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. They've got simple tools. We like simple tools, right? I know I do, right? Keep it simple, stupid for me over there. Simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire right? You're trying to get to that end game here. Who do we want to hire? They're going to make it simple for you. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Get you set up for the new year and beyond, ladies and gents. So the depth chart was curious, right? There was a little bit of pushback on me sharing this because there's some, shall I term them, peculiarities with the depth chart. So let's just get those out of the way to start, right? Marcus Major is listed as an or at running back with Javonte Barnes, John, which is, again, peculiar and curious. Why? Because he's been walking around in a boot. So there's every reason to think that Marcus Major is not playing in this Cheez-It Bowl versus Florida State. What about Andrew Raym? Well, didn't he just have season-ending surgery? So both of these from the land of Andrew Raym, by the way, listed atop the depth chart at center for Oklahoma. I don't know if that was just an oversight by those that put this depth chart together, or if there's something more to that. As of where we stand right now, I would sort of lean it just kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit. But big takeaways from this for me, John, just looking at, let's start offensively for OU. I think one of the big things is left tackle Jacob Sexton. He's getting the start. Aaron Parks is listed as the backup tackle at both left and right tackle for Oklahoma, behind, again, Sexton and Tyler Guyton, respectively. And so just man with a couple of your tackles out, and Anton Harrison and Wanye Morris that have opted out of this thing. How are Sexton and how are Guyton going to hold up? We've seen a little bit of Guyton. We've seen a little bit of Sexton. I've seen a little bit more of Guyton than we have of Sexton, but man, that's probably, offensively for Oklahoma. We can get into Javonte Barnes, but, we can get into the skill guys. We can get into Dylan Gabriel, sure. But honestly, for Oklahoma offensively, John, that's probably the biggest question, is how those two tackles hold up.
Yeah, it's the most important question that has to be answered in this bowl game. And it's the most important question we have to answer before the start of the 2023 season, right? Is who will be starting for you at offensive tackle? Well, this is kind of the first, not to use a pun, but the first opportunity to kind of get a glimpse of what your starting tackle tandem is going to look like in 2023. Because if Jacob Sexton goes out there and has a great game and Tyler Guyton have a great game, I think you can take away some positive vibes from this heading into the offseason. Now, Jacob Sexton, Tyler Guyton, they've got a tough test against a top 20 Florida State defense that's bringing all their guys into the Cheez-It Bowl, including Jared Verse, who's a top 15 draft prospect. If he were to declare after the Cheez-It Bowl, he still has eligibility left, but that's just how highly thought of he is after just one season at Florida State. I mean, he was one of the most coveted, probably the most coveted transfer portal participant or transfer portal player last offseason, aside from Caleb Williams. Jared Verse was that highly thought of coming out of Albany, of all places. So that's a tough test for them. If they're able to hold up reasonably well, I mean, he's going to get some wins. He's going to win some reps. But if they aren't just a sieve out there at tackle, if they're winning some of those reps themselves, making it a little bit difficult for them to get to Dylan Gabriel, then I'm going to feel really good about this. Now, we've kind of hedged a little bit, right? Because we've talked about this compared to the Oregon game last year in the Alamo Bowl. One thing I look back on the Alamo Bowl performance is a lot of the Oregon dudes were opted out or were out due to COVID. Like, there was a lot of guys missing. Well, you're playing Florida State's team. Like, this is everybody. They're proud that everybody opted in and stayed part of the team for the bowl game, regardless of what they're going to do for the future, what they're going to do, with their pro prospects or transfer portal or whatever. They're all coming to this game. So you're going to get a really good indication of what these two guys, especially Jacob Sexton and Tyler Guyton, have at tackle, because they're going against one of the best edge players in the country this season. So if they're able to hold up reasonably well against Jared Verse, man, I'm going to buy in on all the stock for Tyler Guyton. Tyler Guyton's played well when he got spot duty for Wanye Morris's injuries, or when he played a little bit for Anton Harrison. I thought he played really, really well. He wasn't completely lost out there. He had some really good games for this Oklahoma Sooners offensive line. He's a tall dude, 6'7". It's hard to play offensive line at that height because you have to get a little bit lower. You got to play with a little bit better leverage. Like, you got to sink your hips, get your bend going better, because you're automatically kind of giving up in the leverage battle because you're so tall. it takes a lot more work if you're 6'7" to get down to playing against these 6'2", 6'3" edge rushers. So he's got a bit of a challenge. But again, if they can hold up reasonably well, I'll be more than ecstatic about what's coming for 2023 for these guys.
It's a good point, and it bears repeating and discussion that this bowl game is not the bowl game you played versus either Florida or Oregon. You look back on the last two that Oklahoma has played, and you basically had one head coach say, yeah, we didn't care. And then, you had another program that, the actions of the guys opting out kind of had that approach too. They weren't putting that much into it. Obviously, Oklahoma put a lot into that Oregon game just with, the departure of its head coach and trying to say, hey, stamp your flag that this is Boomer Sooner. Here we are. We're not going anywhere. And there's a lot on the line for OU. So Oklahoma's made a habit these last couple of years of taking their bowl games very seriously. And their last two opponents, really haven't done that. Florida State is. So, yeah, from that standpoint, no doubt that if Oklahoma goes out and plays well, and, you talk just individually about Verse, but really just Florida State in general, if you go out and play well and you win this game, yes, that is a fair point that you make. And I will listen to you make it and agree with you that, yeah, we should probably take a little bit more out of this game because of that. Other offensive guys before we shift to the defensive side of the football, I mean, I'm a broken record, but man, anybody that's an underclassman or a young player for Oklahoma in this game, right, is huge that you see those guys go out and play well. It's going to be the Javonte Barnes show in this Cheez-It Bowl. So just getting a chance to see him carry the load, and is he going to go out there and give you a, century mark type performance? You hope so, right? I mean, 20 carries plus and over 100 rushing yards score too. That would be great to see. The wide receivers, we're still waiting on that Marvin Mims decision, but beyond it, right? We open talking Drake Stoops. That's good news. What about Jaden Gibson? What about Nick Anderson? Can Jalil Farouk deliver another performance that mirrors what we saw to end last season in the Valero Alamo Bowl, where we all say, okay, this is somebody that can be a star wide receiver at Oklahoma? I think, any of those trio of wide receivers for Oklahoma, it'd be gigantic for Sooner fans to see Gibson or Farouk or Anderson, any of those three have a big, big bowl game.
Well, I think it means something too that they're listed second on the depth chart, behind, Farouk and Mims, that those two guys are kind of your backups at those positions. So I think that means they're going to get a little bit of run. Like we're going to see these guys because they're going to rotate wide receivers at times. Mims will come off the field from time to time. So if that means we're going to get to see some Jaden Gibson, that's fantastic. And same for Nick Anderson. Like if Jalil Farouk comes off the field and you get to see Nick Anderson, that's fantastic. That's what you want to see in these bowl games, because yes, you want to win the games, but if you're not giving some reps to your younger players to allow them to kind of build some confidence, get some tape for the offseason to see where they can improve and grow, then you kind of wasted the opportunity, right? And then, yeah, Javonte Barnes, we're going to see a bunch of. I think the writing was on the wall as soon as Eric Gray opted out that you were going to see a lot of Javonte Barnes. It's curious to me that we didn't see Gavin Sawchuk's name listed on the depth chart, but I don't think that's any indication that we're not going to see him. I think we're going to see a lot of Gavin Sawchuk, at least in some, passing down situations as a, pass catching running back. They love to throw that flare out to the running back, that swing pass to the running back. I think we'll see that to Gavin Sawchuk, let him use his speed, get out in space, try to make some plays. And they might even use him on some wheel routes, the running back wheel route that, we've seen them throw to Eric Gray from time to time. If they're able to use his speed, get him out in space, I think that's a really good opportunity for him to kind of get his feet wet a little bit more than just giving him a carry and saying, hey, run between the tackles, try to pick up some tough yards, that kind of thing. Like, let him get out in space, do what he does best, use his speed, and go from there.
Defensively, is there a name that immediately comes to mind for you?
I
would say for me, I'm looking defensive line, and if our Mason Thomas, who we've seen a little bit from, has, say, a similar performance to what we got from Strip last year in the Valero Alamo Bowl, that'd be great, right? I mean, then the hype train, you start thinking about guys. We got asked this question. This is actually a good topic for another day, John. We got to ask this question if the hype train's a little too high for one Jaren Kanak, and if he's going to be able to match what the expectation kind of is for Oklahoma fans. Well, on that note, our Mason Thomas, if he goes out and has, a 2.5 TFL game with, a sack and a half or 2 sacks, then he's going to be in that category too with Jaren Kanak, to where there's all sorts of excitement and hype for what, his 2023 and beyond could look like at Oklahoma. But just, specific to him and the defensive line, man, I would love if the younger guys played well in this game. Our Mason Thomas, Halton, if he can come out and make a play or two. Kelvin Gilliam, haven't really seen a lot out of him, out of the redshirt Frosh. Would love to see him make a play or two in this game. Isaiah Coe wouldn't be the worst thing, right? If he shows you that, one final reminder just going into next season that he could be a difference maker for you up front, with obviously Redmond's decision to not play in the game. So, those would be some names up front, I think, to keep an eye on. Obviously, just any of the guys that we think are going to be stars. I guess I'm basically listing everybody on the defense now if I keep going, John. But I do think, maybe this is too obvious, but stars got to look like stars, right? So Danny Stutzman and Bowman against a good Florida State team that we think is one of the better offenses that Oklahoma has seen. Again, not I don't know, not anything super shocking here. Obvious to a degree, yes. But I would like to see both Danny Stutzman and Bowman play well.
Yeah, and back to your R. Mason Thomas stuff, like he's the guy on that defensive front that has the speed and the juice to just kind of win, like outright. I feel like Downs, Grimes, Stripling, they're kind of more technicians, they're more physical players, and that's how they win. But if you need a speed edge, it's R. Mason Thomas. And you need to have at least one of those guys. And because it just threatens the offensive line. It just puts so much stress on offensive tackles that they could get beat off the snap and have a guy in the backfield that quickly. So you got to see him kind of take that next step and start putting, some snaps together, strings together some games where you feel really good about him, taking over maybe one of those edge spots next year. I thought it was interesting that Kip Lewis is listed as the number 2 will at linebacker. And, not that you have a whole lot of other options, but the fact that he's there and potentially is going to get a chance to play some, I think that'd be really good for him and his confidence, because you got to build that linebacker depth. You're starting to, but beyond Danny Stutzman for next season, you don't really have much except for your 2022 signees and your 2023 signees. So you got to start seeing what those 2022 guys have and if they can be valuable members of that linebacker rotation, because you're going to have them. You can't have Danny Stutzman playing 100 snaps, 90 snaps every single game and expect that he's going to be the same player in the first quarter or in the fourth quarter that he was in the first quarter. You got to build depth. You got to have guys that you can feel really good about putting in there and plugging into the linebacker spot when Danny Stutzman comes off the field to keep him fresh, so that in a game like West Virginia, when you need to stop late, your best linebacker is fresh and he's ready to go, as opposed to playing his 100th snap in that game. You got to build depth. You mentioned Grayson Halton. I'm excited to see him. I don't know what to expect out of him, but if he can come out and kind of be a dude and be a guy that can create some havoc in the interior defensive line, that's huge for you. Kenai Walker, that was a dude that got a ton of buzz in spring ball and in, a fall camp, but we didn't really see much of him during the season. Maybe this is kind of the opportunity we see out of him. CJ Colton, hopefully he's back next year, because he was one of your more impactful defensive players. That's a guy I want to see kind of continue to be that ball hawk, that takeaway guy that you have in the secondary, because you hadn't really had much of that until he kind of came along and started just taking the ball away seemingly at will. So a lot to look for on the defensive side. Again, a lot of it comes down to me, to execution and playing within the scheme and defending the read option against a really good running quarterback in Jordan Travis. But I think there's still going to be a lot of questions whether they play well in this game against Florida State or not. But we could lean one way or the other after this game. We could still lean towards they got a lot of work to do on the defensive side, or we could lean to okay, things are starting to kind of come along. They played a really good game. There's optimism. There's something we can build on for this game. If they just go out there and they give up 40, 50 points and they can't stop them at all, we'll still have the same questions coming out of this game that we had coming out of the Texas Tech game. But if they're able to make some key stops late in the game, put the offense in a position to win the game, then we'll feel a little bit better about it. But we'll see. I think a lot of it just comes down to like individual performances, right? You want to see some of these younger guys get in there, win some reps, win some snaps, show like, okay, the defensive thing that Brent Venables is trying to build, it's coming. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Can I interest you in one more time for old time's sake, Eminem featuring Dr. Dre, that if either Reggie Grimes or Marcus Stripling plays really well in this game, similar to a Marcus Major, maybe in ball games past, can I sell you some stock that it's still going to happen for either Reggie Grimes or Marcus Stripling? I mean, is that at stake in any way, shape, or form for this game? Or is it just kind of all about, hey, younger guys up front for you?
I mean, I'd love to see one of those two guys or both come through and have a big game. But I mean, Reggie Grimes had a great start to the season, and then he just didn't really do much during conference play. I mean, Ethan Downs became their best defensive end toward the end of the season. He was the most consistent player. And so I expect him to kind of keep that going and really carry through that last 3 games of the season where he had like 2.5 sacks and 6 tackles for loss over the final 3 games of the year. So I expect him to kind of take another step and play well in this game. But for Reggie Grimes and Marcus Stripling, I don't know. I don't know what to expect anymore out of those guys, because for Stripling, I just feel like there just wasn't much all year. For Reggie Grimes, he had a great start and then just kind of faded through conference play. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect out of those guys. It'll be great to see guys like David Agwebu, Deshaun White kind of have one last hurrah. A guy like Chris Murray, who was a really pivotal transfer for you on the offensive line over the last 2 years, have one last hurrah with the Oklahoma Sooners maybe. And then, see what Dylan Gabriel and Marvin Mims have. I think there's a lot to look forward to. Justin Broyles, another guy, just a beloved Sooner, a fan favorite now amongst Oklahoma Sooners fans, not necessarily because he's always been the best player, but he just does everything for you. Special teams, defense, safety, you need him in the slot. He just does it all. And somebody that people kind of look to as just like, okay, this is a Sooner, like a Sooner born, Sooner bred. He's going to be around for a long time, even after he's done playing the game. So it's going to be fun to kind of close the book on this chapter of Oklahoma Sooner football. And even though it's going to be a long time till September, we get one more game. Let's enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll continue to break it down as the week goes along, Josh.
Well, I think you hit the most important storyline to all of this for Oklahoma and Florida State in the Cheez-It Bowl for OU. This game to me really boils down to, is there going to be more optimism or less optimism throughout the offseason, right? If defensively you're good, then guess what? All of a sudden there'll be more talks of, well, it kind of looked like they're starting to turn, especially if it's young players.
And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and subscribing to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all platforms and on YouTube. Go subscribe to the show over there. Hit the smash the like button and the notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. And we'll be back for more Florida State preview. We'll discuss more transfer portal stuff and just more talk about how we feel about the Sooners as we head into the offseason. But that's going to do it. He's Josh. I'm John. We'll catch you then. Boomer Sooner.